There is a frightening pattern buried inside 500 years of global history. A pattern so consistent, so predictable, that you can almost time a superpower's downfall like clockwork. And in 2025, the United States isn't just approaching that pattern, it is living inside it. Not metaphorically, not theoretically. Step by step, stage by stage. The same sequence that dismantled Spain, the same economic trap that crushed the British Empire, the same structural breakdown that dissolved the Soviet Union. America is following the identical trajectory with alarming precision. This isn't about politics. This isn't about doom predictions. This is what the data shows. This is what centuries of history confirm. This is what every empire believed they were immune to, right before collapse hit them like an avalanche. But to understand why this matters, you have to understand what the fall of a superpower actually looks like. Not in textbooks, not in documentaries, but in real time, as it's happening. How a superpower truly dies. Collapse never begins with a bang. It begins with fatigue. Economic fatigue, strategic fatigue, civilizational fatigue. The empire stretches its reach across continents until the cost of maintaining dominance exceeds the wealth that dominance produces. At first, the decline is invisible. The money still flows, the military still projects strength, the government still promises prosperity. But under the surface, the foundation is rotting. Industries shrink, innovation slow, debt compound, skilled citizens leave, institutions lose legitimacy. Then comes the acceleration. All allies hesitate, rivals become bold, foreign markets search for alternatives, and the currency, the heart of every major empire, begins to lose trust. What once made the empire powerful becomes the very thing that breaks it. Spain learned that. Britain learned that. The USSR learned that. And now the United States is walking through the exact same sequence, not cautiously, but at full speed. To see how dangerous this really is, let's break down the pattern, the 7 stages of imperial failure, and why the United States has already crossed 5 of them. The 7 stages of collapse, and where the United States stands. For 500 years, dominant nations repeated the same choices, the same mistakes, and the same timeline. Stage 1. Military overreach. The fall always begins with ambition. Spain tried to police 4 continents. Britain tried to secure an empire spanning 1/4 of Earth. The Soviet Union tried to confront the US everywhere at once. Their militaries weren't defeated. They were exhausted financially. And America? 750+ overseas bases, defense commitments across Europe, Asia, Middle East, multi-front strategies against Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, military spending greater than the next 10 nations combined, recruitment shortages, aging systems, budget strains. This is not strategy. This is overstretch, the first stage of every empire's decline. Stage 2. Currency devaluation. Once military obligations exceed revenue, empires do something fatal. They devalue their money. Spain diluted silver coins. Britain clung to an overvalued currency until it snapped. The Soviet Union propped up a currency no one trusted. The U.S. path is different in mechanism, but identical in effect. In 1971, the dollar severed gold backing. Since 2000, the money supply exploded. Since 2020, trillions were created out of thin air. Purchasing power has collapsed decade after decade. When money loses meaning, trust follows. When trust fades, decline accelerates. Stage 4. The debt trap. After currency erosion comes the spiral no empire escapes. Debt to pay for the debt. Interest to pay for the interest. Spain defaulted 4 times. Britain borrowed itself into dependency. The USSR ran out of real economic value. And America? $36 trillion national debt. Interest payments nearing $1 trillion per year. Deficits even in economic growth years. Borrowing to pay previous borrowing. A nation becomes fragile the moment its interest payments exceeds its defense budget. America has crossed that line. Stage 5. The collapse of productive capacity. This is the most misunderstood stage. Empires don't fall because they run out of money. They fall because they run out of makers. Spain stopped producing because silver allowed endless imports. Britain lost manufacturing after 2 world wars. The USSR couldn't innovate under state control. And the US? Manufacturing outsourced for 40 years. Dependence on foreign supply chains. Imports dwarfing exports. Critical industries hollowed out. Even military components sourced overseas. When a nation stops building, it stops being a superpower, even if it still looks strong on the outside. Stage 5. Social fragmentation. This stage is subtle, but it's decisive. Empires collapse internally long before they collapse externally. Spain drowned in corruption. Britain fractured politically. The USSR disintegrated socially. America is facing institutional distrust at historic highs. Cities struggling with crime and homelessness. Polarization unlike any era since the Civil War. Declining birth rates, mental health crises, widespread pessimism, a population that no longer agrees on truth itself. No empire survives when its internal unity dissolves. The stages America has not reached yet. There are 2 stages left, and they happen faster than anyone expects. Stage 6. Loss of reserve currency status. This is the breaking point. The global currency loses trust. Foreign nations begin to diversify. Trade shifts away from the empire's money. The currency floods back home, triggering inflation and crisis. This is already beginning in early form. BRICS pushing non-dollar trade, China-Russia bypassing the dollar, Saudi Arabia accepting alternative currencies, massive central bank gold purchases, U.S. allies hedging quietly. It's not collapse, not yet, but it's the first earthquake before the big one. Stage 7. Sudden imperial breakdown. Every empire thinks collapse happens slowly. It doesn't. The Soviet Union disappeared in less than 3 years. Britain lost its empire in 2 decades. Spain crumbled rapidly after its silver supply faded. Collapse is not a cliff, it's a trap door. One currency shock, one debt panic, one geopolitical miscalculation, and the world's strongest power becomes a cautionary tale. The U.S. hasn't hit stage 6 or 7 yet, but it's closer than any time since 1945. Why this matters right now. For the first time in modern history, America has the debt levels of a failing empire, the currency structure of an aging empire, the military commitments of an overstretched empire, the social cohesion of a declining empire, and the political division of a pre-collapse empire. Spain told itself it was exceptional. Britain told itself it was chosen. The USSR told itself collapse was impossible. America tells itself the same story. But history doesn't care about exceptionalism. It cares about equations. And the equation is simple. You cannot expand militarily, debase your currency, overload debt, hollow out production, and fracture internally, and still remain a superpower. No nation has ever survived all 5 stages, ever. The U.S. is in stage 5. Stages 6 and 7 haven't arrived yet, but the speed at which stage 1 through 5 accelerated since 2020 is unprecedented. The pattern isn't theory. The pattern is mathematics. Final warning. Maybe America reforms. Maybe it rebuilds. Maybe it breaks the cycle. But history whispers a colder truth. Every empire believed it would be the exception, until the last moment, when the shock came suddenly, irreversibly, unexpectedly. If this opened your eyes, if you want to understand the next stages before they hit, subscribe, because the answers aren't hidden in predictions. They're already written in the timelines of Spain, Britain, and the Soviet Union. And now, they're being written again, in real time, right in front of us.